Gun confiscation, can it work in America? Get a grip with Joe Drammissi next.
But first, PRMI Mortgage, primeres.com/Alpine. Are you in the military looking for help for a VA loan? If you're looking to buy or refi, or if you're just considering a reverse mortgage, you need to call our mortgage guy that you can trust. Call Chris Wiley at PRMI Mortgage. For nearly 25 years, Chris has been helping local San Diegans with all their mortgage needs. Call Chris Wiley at 619-722-1303 or just go to primeres.com/Alpine. All right, Joe, what do you got?
Okay, so talk a little bit about gun confiscation. Not so much because I started out with, can it work in America? It doesn't really work anywhere they do it, but can it happen in America is a better question for that. So that's this week's article, which I will publish tomorrow morning on the Gun Owners site, and you can find it on, or you'll be able to find it on getagrip.substack.com as well tomorrow morning. So I was looking at, the reason I started thinking about this is I read an article where the Canadian government, I guess, implemented a ban again, and it was an emotional reaction to some shooting they had up there. And they passed a law, I guess, to institute a gun ban back in May of 2020, I believe. And it's supposed to, for sure, go into effect in April this year, April 2022. And what they're doing is, it's a buyback kind of thing. And I call it a confiscation because that's really what it is. These buyback plans that you hear about, I mean, our government talks about them. Lots of other governments try them or do them. And it's not really a buyback thing. I think that's one of those deals with the language. Remember, we talk about the language being important. And I think that's a mistake sometimes that the gun community makes is we let maybe the anti-gun forces make up these things like gun violence and assault weapon and those kinds of terms that aren't really true terms. And buyback plans are really, I think a buyback thing falls into that category because, for one, the government never owned my guns, so they're not buying anything back. And, the buyer doesn't necessarily get to tell the seller what you're going to sell the thing for. And the buyer certainly doesn't get to buy things from the seller that the seller's not interested in selling. So they're not really buyback plans. They're confiscation schemes. But they're implementing this in Canada. And they estimate, because right now, I guess starting in May of 2020, people were supposed to be turning in their guns. And they estimate in Canada there were somewhere between 90,000 and 105,000 guns that would fall onto this restricted or banned list. And to date, they've got a total of 160 guns that have been turned in so far. So it doesn't sound like everybody's real enthusiastic up there. And one of the reasons, I guess, that they're saying that things haven't been, if there hasn't been a lot of participation, I guess, is because they don't really have the system up and running yet. So for anyone that would be foolish enough to turn in a gun now, they wouldn't be compensated for it. So they think that's holding it up a little bit. But I was looking at that and, because Canada really, compared to other countries and different places, really did not have a big problem with violent crime, with criminals using guns to commit crimes. Really not a big problem with mass shootings and things like that. So kind of a knee-jerk reaction. There may be other motives behind this thing. But I was looking at that and thinking, okay, well, could that happen here, I guess? Could that kind of a buyback scheme be implemented? Because it's certainly been talked about here. And different countries have tried it. The UK has done it now for years, I guess. They've tried to get rid of guns in their country. And we were talking about that a little bit in one of the other segments. And it's, it really hasn't done that well in terms of crime there. I guess if you go with, what's the intended purpose? I would assume, giving governments the benefit of the doubt, that the intended purpose is to either reduce violent crime and or increase public safety. And it really doesn't seem to do that. The information coming out of the UK, with the exception of Dave's guy that he watched a little bit earlier. But, for the most part, it doesn't say much has been happening there in terms of reducing that kind of stuff. And the crime has shifted. I think Dave was mentioning earlier that, they have a lot of other violent crime now, that criminals use things other than guns. The other thing that's interesting in England, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we did the Bump in the Night article, hot burglaries. the difference between, hot burglaries and cold burglaries. So cold burglaries being when the burglar comes into a house or a residence that's occupied versus that being a hot burglary is occupied. Cold burglary would be an unoccupied house. And in the United States, most burglaries, about 75% of them are cold burglaries because burglars go to great lengths to make sure nobody's home before they sneak into the house to steal whatever they're going to steal. In the UK, it's completely different. It's 75% are hot burglaries.
Wow.
So, and I would imagine part of that at least is because they know people are unlikely to be armed.
That's a huge stat, really.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And it is interesting. And, so those things have unintended consequences, but they've done them in the UK. They've done them in Australia, which, Australia's crime was dropping anyway for years. Before, again, they had a mass shooting in 96, 35 people, I think, were killed. And that resulted in their severe, gun restrictions. And it really hasn't done much in terms of reducing crime over there. In Australia, they say they confiscated 700,000 firearms at a cost of about $700 million. And, didn't really have much of an impact. So, I was thinking, could that happen here? And, it could happen here. I guess we go back to the questions because lots of politicians here have talked about doing, banning what they call assault rifles or doing some kind of buyback scheme or something like that. And everybody from Joe Biden to Hillary Clinton to the lowly Beto O'Rourke have talked about doing that kind of stuff. So, I think if you ask some questions, could it happen here? I think it could. In our current political climate, I think something like that could probably get through Congress. And if it got to Joe Biden's desk, he would sign it. Would it have any effect on crime in this country? Probably not. If anything, it would probably make us less safe, I would think, if they did something like that. Would it be struck down by the courts is another question. And probably, possibly, I don't know.
Depends on the court.
It would certainly be challenged. But, that's another question. In general, would Americans comply? And that's an interesting part, too. If you're in one of the more oppressed states where your rights are completely trampled, like California, New York, New Jersey, where the state knows what guns you have, they know who owns guns, they know what guns they are, it would be difficult to not comply, I think, in those states, because you'd be asking, as a gun owner, you would have to consciously make a decision to break a law, to actively break a law. And I think most people probably wouldn't do that. But in the 43 or so free states, I doubt that compliance would be that high. But you would know, I guess, until it would happen. But my guess would be in most of America, people really would be reluctant to comply because I think a lot of gun owners are more aware of the world. They're more aware of the purpose of guns, the reason we have guns, and I think they would be less likely to do something that endangers themselves or their families. But, who knows? You have to wait and see. But, if that were to happen here in America, would that be good for the country overall? My guess is that probably not. I think something like that would probably be bad for the country and bad for all Americans. But who knows?
No matter where you stand on COVID and the response to COVID, whether you think everything they did was great or you think everything they did was horrible or you're somewhere in between, I do think it's proof positive that if there was some kind of extreme gun confiscation, people would comply.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, folks. Pretty interesting. Hey, don't go anywhere. From gang member to Army Ranger. We're talking to Angel Cortez in studio on Gun Owners Radio. FM 96.1, AM 1170.
The Answer.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 AM. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.